Welcome to this special episode of Ask the Doc. I'm your host, Dr. Tony Vasillo, and today we're taking an inside look at the new feature film, One Night in Bath, presented by Stardom Global Films. This movie is more than a story about just business. It's about family, it's about building a legacy, and it's about taking risk. It's also about what happens when private decisions collide with public opportunity. Set against the historic backdrop of the town of Bath in the UK, this film explores a family-run water company seeking investors. But beneath the surface lies something far, far deeper: identity, loyalty, and the cost of ambition. Today, I'm joined by cast members Alastair Curtin, Mike Geary, Georgina Leonidas, screenwriter Palm Edwards, and film producer Michelle Parkin to discuss the heart behind the story. Welcome to all of you, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to do the podcast. Let's jump right into it. So I'm going to start with our screenwriter, Palmer Edwards, who does a ton of screenwriting for Stardom Global. Palmer, you've written many, many scripts. Tell us what it's like to be a screenwriter.
Well, thank you, Tony, for this opportunity, and great to see all you guys again. Well, to be a screenwriter, I always look at it as for me, it's a business. A lot of people do a passion project and they'll do a one-off or whatever. But one of the best things I did for myself was I read a lot of scripts from a lot of people that know how to write them. And then I went to school because I really wanted to do it. And I found out some strategic things. You need to know who you're writing the script for. You need to have a good title that's marketable. You need to make it marketable that some talented actors and actresses will want to do the part, and make sure you keep it at a reasonable budget, because in the end, Hollywood, as they say, is a business, and there are producers that are going to try to make this film, and they want to make sure that they can do their best to get it to the audience and to make it profitable.
If you were to give the audience one or two tips about lessons you've learned if they choose to become a screenwriter, what would you tell them?
Read a couple books, or even look at some podcasts or recordings if you're not going to go to school, on how to actually write the script. A lot of people think formatting is the big deal. It's not so much. You need to make sure that you can flesh out your story properly, put it into proper acts, make sure there's an arc for your characters to live through and go through, because people want to get emotionally involved. And at the end of the film, if they're not emotionally involved with your characters, it's going to be a bad experience for them. But if they care about those characters and are worried about where those characters are going to make the journey they're trying to make, then it becomes a hit.
Excellent. And finally, what's your take on One Night in Bath? What do you think about the movie?
Well, I watched a lot of different versions of it, because you'll learn in the film industry that we have the first version that when the producers are sending you just clips and screeners and things like that. But once the film was finished, I will tell you this: this is my opinion, if a person likes Notting Hill, likes any of the British romantic comedies, this will rise up to their expectations of enjoyment, and also the journey that our characters take. It's heartfelt, and they have their obstacles, and you're rooting for them, and at the end you're really rooting for them, and I think that makes a great film.
Fantastic. Thank you, Palmer. And not only welcome to the podcast, but I do appreciate everything that you do for Stardom Global, and looking forward to the next script that you're going to write.
Yeah.
Next in the hot seat is Michelle. So Michelle, you are the producer. You are the producer of One Night in Bath. What was the original vision behind the movie?
So I think One Night in Bath, the attraction and the original vision was always to create something that makes the most of the fact that British rom-coms have that real appeal. And I think that if you can find the right mix, as Palmer alluded to, of character and warmth, and also bringing in some real world things, so it's not all about being over the top. It's about real characters that our audience can relate to. I think that's what we always wanted to set out, was something that you could create a really nice sort of heartwarming film that anyone in the family can watch, but actually does also answer some questions and addresses some themes in it as well.
Quick sidebar: I said this to Mike earlier. If I had any of your accents, I'd run for governor. I love your accents, all of you. All right, back to Michelle. Michelle, what makes this film commercially attractive in the global marketplace?
I think actually one of the interesting things about One Night in Bath is, although on paper we have this sort of coming of age rom-com, this drama, we have a really interesting mix in that we have a director who came on board who is essentially an action director, Mark Price. And I think what Mark's done with this film has been amazingly clever in that we've brought things that are surprising, that are funny, that have a pace of something of a different genre, but actually still very much fits into a rom-com. And I think having something like this where we're talking about an indie film and the scope of some of the things we did with hot air balloons and throwing a lead actress out of a hot air balloon into a lake and things that really are crazy to think we could achieve. And I think that's essentially something that having a director on board who thinks a little bit differently, I think, has made this a very attractive film. That's why I think it appeals to audiences, because they're getting what they want in terms of rom-com, but they're getting something extra they're not actually expecting.
That's my exact take on it. Excellent answer. Is the film designed for theatrical, streaming, or the international markets, or everything?
I think everything. I think it's a film that, in my mind, has real replay value, and I think that's where down the line streaming, TV channels, all that sort of thing kicks in. I think that having some nice festivals and that is great. It gets the film out there, but I think actually it's a sort of film that I know certainly who the people I've shown it to, they want to watch it again. It's got a really nice feel that I think eventually the streaming, it'll keep coming up again. And some of the titles that Palmer alluded to, they're the films you watch every couple of years. You enjoy them. And I think this is exactly what this film does. And I think One Night in Bath has that feel about it. So it's long-term life on streaming, I think, is where it will just keep on coming up.
Nice. And then finally, why do you think the story translates globally?
I think it's because it's based on very real themes that a lot of people have. We have a main character who has a responsibility handed down to him. He's a good guy, but he's a flawed character, which always makes interest. I think that the ensemble cast and the three you're about to talk to are brilliant. In each one of them brings something very real to a film. And I think when you have an ensemble cast like this and they all bounce off each other so well, you always find characters you relate to, and you perhaps enjoy more than others. But that's the beauty of it, because we've tried to keep every one of those characters having something quite unique, and that's why I think it translates really nicely.
Very good. Michelle, I can tell you, I wanted to thank you for all the hard work you've done. I mean, I know we drive you crazy with Zoom calls and, early in the morning, late at night, all this kind of stuff because of the time difference. I apologize for that, but you have been a trooper for us, and you have been an excellent person to work with. And I mean that very sincerely.
Thank you.
All right. Up next is Alistair. Now,
Alistair,
hello. I already told you I loved your character. I absolutely loved your character. When I watched it, first of all, I loved everybody's character, but that's besides the point. I really, really was drawn to what you did out there. So let me ask you, what drew you personally to the role?
I think, I don't know whether it was actually the role. I've got a long relationship with Mark. So Mark and I have been Mark Price and I have been working together for about 23 years now.
Oh, okay.
So, because from very early on in both of our careers. So really, I came at it from the film point of view. So it's like, what's the film? And with the idea of the film is like, what would be a fun character to create that could just exist in this world of the factory that quite simply could add some sort of comedic value. So that was kind of what I brought to it. So
I mean, your character was flamboyant, charming. It was just, I loved it. Like I said, I really loved it.
Yeah, I like the idea of a wannabe escapologist who keeps on getting locked into cupboards.
I love it. How was your character different? The character in One Night in Bath, how is it different from other roles you may have played?
I think it's one of the first that's kind of out and out comedy. I've done out and out comedy on stage, but I've never done out and out comedy on film. So I think that was a big difference for me. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. And then, if anything, what surprised you the most once the filming began? Did anything surprise you?
I think what I was most surprised at was just about the huge amount of locations we were at. We really got into like the seams of Bath. we were down alleys, we were in factories, we were in bars, we were in restaurants, theaters, everywhere. So it really is a love letter to that city because we were just all over it.
I love it. That's great. And then finally, what was the chemistry like amongst all the cast members?
Oh, it was great. It was such a big cast, and everybody was there and around. I think one of my favorite days was when we were shooting the speed dating scene in the Japanese restaurant, and there were leftover temporary tattoos that all of the cast and crew just covered themselves with. So by the end of the day, everybody had facial tattoos and everything, and that was just it for the whole film. It was just this joyful experience.
I appreciate that. And again, thank you for one, being in the film, and two, doing such an amazing job in the film. So I appreciate that. Michael, you're up next. And let me start with this question. How does your character influence the central conflict of the film?
He's a very odd character, it'll be honest. When we were coming up with him, we thought he's a mystery wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a boiler suit. And essentially he has different boiler suits for different occasions. How does he influence things? Well, I don't want to give anything away, but he is responsible for a major story beat that might kick things off a little bit between our two major characters.
Fabulous.
He's a weirdo.
Why do you think entrepreneurs might connect with the film?
Well, they're shown in varying degrees of light, really. You've got one end with our main character who's trying his best to do everything for family and for friends and to make the world a better place. And then right at the other end, you have let's say, a slightly more negative representation. So we've got the full spectrum.
Fabulous. And what was the most memorable day on the set for you?
Well, I'd like to say it was when we were in a hot air balloon going above Bath, and it was a wonderful day. I loved it very, very much. But to be perfectly honest, it was when we were doing a certain Christmas show together based on a certain movie that people say is a Christmas movie, but other people say, no, it's an action movie.
Great answer. And then finally, Michael, what kind of conversations do you hope the film sparks with the audience?
Well, I hope that they talk about what a fun film it is and how much fun they've had watching it. And there's so many different wonderful characters for you to relate to who do such a huge degree of things that they're just going to talk about rewatching it, I hope. But there's so much in there. There's family, there's love, the whole thing. It's wonderful.
You know, Michael, earlier when we were talking, you said you'd help me with the accent. Remember, I'm going to hold you to that.
No problem.
Okay. And next, and finally, Georgina, welcome. You've been in 2 of our films, and you've also been in Harry Potter. That is so impressive to me. I took a look at your profile and read what you've done, and it's extremely impressive on my end. So that being said, what initially attracted you to One Night in Bath?
Again, I'd worked with Mark Price beforehand, and so was really excited to work with him again. I had such an amazing time the first time around, and had worked with Mike and Alice as well. So was really excited to work with the cast again. And I just loved the script. I think what everyone has sort of said, there was such a lot of heart and comedy, and it just seemed like such a fun. As an actor, I knew straight away that we were all just going to have so much fun, especially filming in beautiful Bath. And I really liked my character. There's sort of this sort of sweet innocence to her, and I really like the sort of other storyline that her and Echo have. There's, the main love interest, but there's this sort of other sweet little undercurrent happening that in the scenes you just sort of clock these other 2 characters that might.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that. And Michelle, you're going to have to figure out a way to invite me to visit the town of Bath, because I really want all Bath, as you guys say. I need to go out there and take a look at it. All right, next, Georgina, how would you describe your character in a few sentences?
Caring, loving, sweet, and I think she would do anything for someone that she loves. I don't think she doesn't have she doesn't have a bad bone in her body. She loves where she works. She loves the people who she works with. For her, as it is with the other characters, they are family. And again, there's, another storyline where I really feel like you feel the weight of that, actually, of how much they love each other when faced with something really difficult that everyone can relate to. And I think, all the characters just have the biggest heart. And yeah, I think we can all try and be like
Like her.
Yeah.
Now, what makes the character relatable to audiences? You kind of alluded to that, but can you add a little bit more flavor to that?
Yeah, I think, she's young. It's her first job out of school. She's, very lucky that she's found herself surrounded by people that equally care about her as much. But as I said, there's kind of like an awkwardness to her, which I think we can all relate to, especially when it comes to love and the pursuit of love, and how hard that can be in this day and age with, you're either on apps or you're not on apps, and that, there's, someone else has that sort of storyline and she's sort of involved in that. But I think that as well will just touch upon those that, we don't all just go out and find that stuff as easy. Dating can be awkward and it can be hard, and I quite like there's a lot of comedy through that storyline as well. So I think we can all relate to that.
It's funny, but listening to you,
or maybe not. I'm just
listening to you speak, I want to fly out to London and hug you. You have such a great personality, which is fantastic. All right, now this last question really goes out to all of you, and what I'll do is I'll start with Palmer, Michelle, and then go down and ask you to give an answer to it. And the question is, in one sentence, why should people watch One Night in Bath? Palmer, you start.
It's a heartwarming story that can give you hope. And also at the end of it, just the feeling I have every time I've seen it just makes the world seems a little brighter for me sometimes. And I like movies like that make me feel happy, because there's enough negative stuff going on, and I don't have to go to a movie to find that anymore.
Yeah, very good. Michelle, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's that feeling of being entertained by something that can take you away from the world at the moment. And I think something that is enjoyable, but also makes you feel something. So it's not just on in the background and you don't care. I think it draws you in enough to really care, but I think it takes you on this really nice journey, which is unexpected. It gives you a laugh. And it gives you that feeling at the end of something that's been just an enjoyable, it's a nice hug. It's a warm hug.
Nice. Alistair, you're up next. What do you think?
I think it's like a Christmas cracker. You look at it, it's like a Christmas cracker. You pull it, it's got some surprises inside. Yeah? So it looks like a cracker, but it's got a couple of curveballs in there, which I really love. So
I love
help
that
for the
answer.
romantic comedy, stay for the curveballs.
I love the answer. Michael, you're next. What do you think?
It's all about love, baby. It's about love. It's about found family, and it has the best meet cute I've ever seen.
Fantastic. I love that, and I love the meet cute phrase. Excellent. Georgina, what do you think?
I mean, again, to reiterate what everyone said, it's heartwarming, it's fun, but you will laugh a lot. I think compared to other romantic comedies, this just has so much of that comedy, and just the pacing of the film feels quite unique as well for a rom-com. I think touching on what Michelle said about Mark mostly doing sort of action films, but that really works in this context. And some of the comedy really comes for me from you're watching something and you cut to something else and it catches you so off guard. And my favorite line of the film, I challenge you not to laugh, is when Mike is describing the scent of a man.
Yeah,
and I rewound and watched the first time I saw the film. I rewound and watched that 10-second clip over and over again, because I don't know how we ever got a clean version of that without us all laughing. I don't. Yeah, sorry, I've waffled a bit, but yeah.
I love that. And I'll add some context also. What I loved about the movie, I've watched it twice now, and what I loved about it is I could show it to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a family movie also. Besides being a romantic comedy for adults, I could show it to the family and not worry about the content. So that was my take. And I also found it funny. So I found it very funny also. So I enjoy comedy. So nice job, all of you, very, very much. I appreciate all the time you took out of your schedule. It has been exciting. And I think we did a halfway decent job on this. I do appreciate all of you. And as they say, that's a wrap. This is Dr. V signing off. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Brilliant.